words, our words. In words.
Thank you all for coming out tonight in the snow. Give yourself a round of applause for not being scaredy cats. I almost turned back. I live on a very scary road, and I almost turned back. Okay. We want to thank just a few announcements. First of all, welcome to some people who are brand new here, as well as to the favorites who've been here forever, because in truth, I call this my IWOW family. When you just think about it, it's just one other family. And when I saw the theme family, I'm like, wow, that's big. Someone's going to have something to say about that. It was almost too big to wrap my thoughts around. It's like, is it family, my family, or her family, or the White House family, or the family of man? I mean, I just was like, we could go anywhere, and I hope that some of you have. Also, many people come here to read other things or present or do whatever they creatively feel like. Doesn't have to be on the theme. So the rules here is it's 5 minutes-ish. It's on theme or on your own theme. I will be announcing or sort of hosting and saying who's going to be up. CPC, the Center for Peace Through Culture, we want to thank them right now for hosting and keeping this beautiful place ready for us and bringing out all our cookies and sweets and treats. There is a $5 donation that we would love you all to, minimum. It could go up as far as you wish. And it's the end of the year for CPC, and they'd really like that. And there's a donation jar on the table right near the entrance. Okay, please deposit something wonderful for them. There is also time for announcements at the end if you have community things or something you're working on and you want to share it with the IWOW family. Tonight it's the IWOW Snow family, the people who came out in the snow. So I think that is the announcements. Yes. Okay. And I thank Denise, who pulls it together every week. And she sits there patiently looking at the timing, too, so you might hear a little ding from time to time. And I will just say that we're going to start with Kitty Kiefer.
So, family. Family is an accordion. With muscle, it expands. With pressure, it contracts. It can be discordant. It can be melodic. It can harmonize, can grate and irritate. Maintenance is not possible. There is no oil fine enough to lubricate or give release to jammed, layered thoughts. My family of origin has deep roots, has written books about parts of itself, with seriousness, with earnest will, trying for accuracy, but with an agenda about what we are. But family is really only memory, specifically memories of the person standing in front at the podium in 1810 or in 2024. Memories, never anonymous, that would be fiction. Always present behavior is measured against similar circumstances from the past. That is nonfiction. Storytelling, a craft. Some memories are then linked with expectation or with disappointment, and then describe our behaviors and lay out the easiest path. Memory goes by rote. We know too much to allow growth without interference and anticipation. We prune, we propagate, and even wish we could clone occasionally. but grafting is impossible. That pain is unbearable. Humor in a family can be wild, fun, hilarious. Grief can be sudden, shared, and very deep. A birth is always exciting in that moment. Death at the end of a long life can be kind, a procession. Death can teach and guide, and it can create desolation. Loneliness can be lessened by a warm arm around the shoulders, a small hug, a cup of something hot in winter, or a cool drink in the summer. Always with. Families always have another person somewhere. Silence can be stony. Silence can be safe and warm. Words are not always necessary. Just the presence of others is enough. Walking together, alone, but with. Quiet, except for the sound of breath, expanding and contracting. Family.
Years ago tonight, I started at IWOW. 10 years. Told a Santa poem. Turkey lottery. There were many families like the Browns, many indeed, like them and the Whites, family relations who just hated each other. Many are like the Browns with a mom who comes from a rival, in this case the Whites. Whatever the Whites think about pretty much anything is something that the Browns would never think, and of course vice versa. And that was going to be a big old problem when it came to the November turkey get-togethers. Thankfully, the senators have invented the great turkey lottery to vent the good old hatred. Like the New Year's lottery, but not a culling thing, this one is just some fun to decide who carves the bird and all. The feuding parties, by regulation, alternate sites each year. The host this year is the Browns, Mr. Rugby Brown and Pamela, Carla White's sister. And don't even think of skipping out of it. We all recall old Kevin McGrievance tried to skip it one year once he'd done in his rival, like gone. Why do a carving lottery when there's no one left to hurt? Good point. It got him a suspended sentence, which used to mean by rope, but now is 15 lashes of the suspenders while you wear them. To play, you have to fill in your forms with your taxes in September and then get your cans and cash shipped by November. Think security-sealed coffee cans with logos of tax. The cans have cash inside based on numbers in the taxes. Who knows? But whatever amounts come in the cans decides the lottery and who gets to carve the bird and all. The winner picks up the special carving serrated turkey knife and starts in making slices and forking it out on plates for his side, while the mom serves them stuffing and sauce and potato smudge and all the things. All this feasting while the loser looks on, waiting their turn, which comes whenever the winners are good and done. The Whites are going to win, as we will see, by using the new little-known rule that allows you to name allies and have tax and games officially add their cash to your cans. They're using some cousins and an old guy from church who is a self-made thousandarian. But Rugby Brown didn't know this allies rule, and as he will say to Pamela later tonight as they all paw through the garbage for leftovers, he thinks stuff like that is cheating. And she will say, cheating. Nobody cheats anymore. You just follow the rules as they change them. So late in November, the day of battle, and here come the Whites over the river and through the woods. Kiddos and the pies in 2 trucks. We're family, he tells the wife as they come up the curvy drive. So anything goes. Inside the little suburban home, The bird has been smelling up the house from the oven, and Mrs. Rugby Brown, Pamela, calls to the men, "Bird has another 30 minutes." The men shout, "Get the cans, get the cans," and they dump out and count the contents of their cans. The Browns are shocked at all the cash the Whites have and call, "Cheaters!" What can you do? The Whites go to church with 1,000 Turkey done and set on the table, Zane lifts the carving serrated turkey knife. "Eat your tummies out, brownies. Whites, let's party." He slices into the warm breast, back and forth, muttering, "Fuck yeah, turkeys," as the first and virgin white slab rolls in a gorgeous fold down onto the plate, moisture glistening it, steam rising to the nose of the seated winners. He picks up the slab with the tip of the knife and offers it to his rival for a taunting second, and then pulls it back and lifts it high and lets it slither into his own mouth. He chews and moans like in bed and winks at his wife. The Browns stand at attention, tummies gurgling as their guests eat up all the food, all of it. But our dutiful Mrs. Brown, with the official event camera around her neck, watches for a great photographic moment like the war pictures coming in the paper each month. She gets one of Zane just as he lifts a fisted right turkey thigh to his curled back mouth, skin stretching wide, butch head tipped, eyeballs twisted hard onto the brown crispy skin, 3 front teeth sinking in. It was a classic. She never showed the photo even to Mr. Brown, but she sent it in with the official records to Tax and Games. And wasn't that photo just used right there on the cover of the February? Makes your day when that happens. Of course, she called her sister, Carla White, to congratulate. But there was no answer. Not then or all through March. It seems that Zane maybe was gone, as in gone. Mr. Brown soothed her, saying, "Probably not the New Year's lottery. What luck that would be. No, hopefully the heart thing." Then he observed, "Hey, great, White is gone, so we can skip the lottery next year." But Pam pointed out, "We'll do jail time, suspended sentence. Better get a new hatred. Maybe from your side this time. I can think of plenty. The blacks, for instance." He said, "Let's do the Grays. That guy just gets me going. Kind of poor, too." And she agreed. "But Ruggs, keep an ear open for any new rules this time at the office." "You're so right, my dear. As always, as always."
La Familia. I better hold it. There are 2 daddy families. There are 2 mommy families. And of course, there are the traditional 1 parent from each gender families. Then there is the old-fashioned mafia family. And no one epitomizes that family better than Don Corleone in Francis Ford Coppola's trilogy, The Godfather. In fact, I would posit that the Corleone family is even more famous than the one currently occupying the White House or the one about to move in again. In every case, the family glue that holds these disparate members together is love and loyalty. But these ingredients are not absent volatility. In one scene, Michael says to his brother Fredo, "You're my older brother, and I love you, but don't ever take sides against the family again." Of course, he is also talking about the family business. As an aside, we love family-run businesses and would much rather go to them than some soulless big box store. In time, though, when Michael wants to lead an honest and normal life with his beloved Kay, he exclaims, "Just when I thought I was out, they drag me back in." That is the power of family. Michael fought bravely for his country in World War II, but his overwhelming loyalty is to his family first and foremost. As the story progresses, we see this even when he tells his henchmen not to touch Fredo, who clearly betrays the family, while their mother is still living. As a society, we venerate the family unit as its major building block. Politicians claim they are all about supporting family values. Then think nothing about voting for legislation that will weaken or even counter these values. At one point in The Godfather, singer Johnny Fontaine asks help from the Don to procure a movie role from a movie producer who is dismissive of his talents. Before he agrees to help him, the Don asks if he spends time with his family. Johnny assures him he does. "Good," Corleone says, "because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man." He gives a quick look to Sonny, then embraces Fontaine, and we know what happens next. I love this part. He makes the producer an offer he can't refuse. Whoops. It's very appropriate that IWOW and this family theme follows Thanksgiving, a time of family celebration. My family and its various extensions showed up with much fanfare, and the 11 of us sat down to a goose feast. On the menu was also gratitude in abundance. Everyone pronounced what family meant to them. Things like emotional shelter and safety, a needed port in a storm, a place to be yourself, support and advice from the people who know you best, Don Corleone would have felt very comfortable at our table.
And I didn't know there was a theme because I probably didn't read that on the website. So I'm trying to pick out a couple poems that are going to have, it's going to be mentioned about family. This one is going to be very close to the end, and it's more of a beat poem, so I wanted to read one of those. And then the other, I do have poems about family, but not one right here. And then another is more of losing family. So I'll start out with Burst Wide Open. Not a piñata or the balloon from yesterday's party, not the bloom of a lily or a book opened for the first time, not fireworks or a tower of brass bells frantically ringing, not the crescendo of an orchestra or when a surprise party erupts from nowhere, not even a double rainbow. More like when an infant babe exits a womb, or when the sun blasts into full view riding along the highway. Even a wild hurricane's touchdown on land cannot compare to the pulsing of blood through the veins, the flush, the weak in the knees sensation, the heart string pull, the heart song serenade. Basking in the afterglow, euphoric, burst wide open here and now. This newfound love is not profound. It is more like your kin has walked 10,000 miles to find you. No forgetting. His tongue is his poetry. I remember when he spoke, there was no paper, no pen, no forgetting. His announcement of autumn described shadows, how the sun shone, created elongated angles different from summer. His recollection of a first snow, how snowflakes drift down to earth, how he explained that the snow was a blanket to cover earth's nakedness, his long-winded description of earth's inhabitants, how they stare, then retreat to their structure. Some have no shelter. Always makes me self-aware of my own privilege. His ever fanciful yet intriguing lessons influenced the way I carried my emotions, the way I perceived what I used to not openly admit. My poetry benefited greatly from all that I borrowed from those days of his reckoning. The stage he built, his precipice, will be embedded forever in the mind of the girl he loves. Thank you.
What it's like to be the poet.
Oh, sure. Well, first off, I actually went for 2 knee operations, and I'm not looking for sympathy about that. It just starts the story, and that was in 22 and another one in 23. So I was recovering from that. Anybody that's had any kind of surgery knows what that's all about. You're just not on your game for 2-3 months. So for years and years and years, I have been driving to Florence, Massachusetts, Greenfield, Massachusetts, and Amherst, Massachusetts, because I could not find poetry in Berkshire County, at least original poetry. So I am aware of here, and I'm aware of Word by Word now. But Word by Word does not have open mics in the same sense as, like, if you publish a book and you want to be a feature reader and you go to watch the readers, who I watched many of since the early 2000s. So I just followed this group of poets and then met new groups and more groups from all over Western Mass. And one day, after I was probably in my 3rd month of recovering in 2023, a friend of mine who's a poet in Greenfield and has been a Beat Poet laureate himself, Paul Richmond, he calls me up and he says, "You've been nominated to be the Beat Poet Laureate of Massachusetts." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" I said, "I don't even have a real published book. I have these chapbooks. I publish myself. They don't even have ISBN numbers on them. You've been nominated." So to me, a nomination is a great privilege. I just that's nice. but I was still kind of surprised. So 5 hours later, I get an official email from the Beat Poetry Foundation out of Bark, Hampstead, Connecticut, and went, oh my God, I wasn't just nominated. You know, it was shocking to me because I was always kind of like the closet writer, the person that sat in the third or fourth row in open mic. You read your 2 poems and you go sit down. So all through the COVID, it was mostly all Zooms I did. So this was 23, so we were coming out of COVID. So he said, well, you'll be the Beat Poet Laureate for 2 years until they decide who will be it toward the end of 25. So he publishes books. I said, you know, that you're going to have to publish my book. I can't get one out fast enough. If I send manuscripts, it can take 6 months to a year and a half. He goes, no, he has like an indie publishing. It's called Human Era Publishing. So this was a book he published for me, If Brambles Were Bookends, which is a poem in this book. And this book is not entirely beat poetry because until he told me I was nominated for that, I didn't see myself that way. But I guess there's enough of it in here that somebody recognized that. But there's a lot of just, nature poetry about, phenomena in your life, things that you dream about. So there's 67 poems here, but I probably have about, not as many as a lot of poets, maybe 400 that I like, where some poets have thousands and thousands. But the most exciting thing about this isn't so much that I get to go and read for people, it's all the connections I make all over the state to people. They invite you back. I was in Rockport, Massachusetts in the beginning of November. I've been in, down in I don't know if you people have heard of Straw Dogs. It's out of Northampton. I've read for them in Forbes Library. I've read in Longmeadow. I've read way up at the Garlic Festival up there in Orange. I just, wherever anybody's looking for readers, and it does when I inquire, it can take 6 months to a year and a half to get on the list to be the feature reader. It's not just something, there's so many people and all the past poet laureates of everywhere and just people who never get to be a laureate, but honestly, a lot of these people's poetry, I feel I revere it. So it's very shocking to me. I'm very humbled by it, and it's very exciting. And I had to do a lot of practicing to get up here and sing this.
I am an extremely lucky person. I was born into a long, many generations going back. We probably came over in the 17th century. Many different aspects or lines of my family. And I'm going to talk about one tonight that is my father's mother's side of the family, who has some really important people in it, from my standpoint and from the standpoint of this country. So I've prepared a little board of show and tell. My great-great-grandfather in that line was the Civil War governor of Vermont, which meant that he had to raise many volunteers to go and work for Lincoln and for the important, huge, horrendous battle that we undertook as Northerners. So I'm going to take you from my great-great-grandfather, who was that governor, to his son, who went to battle at the age of 19 for the Union. And I'm going to read parts of his obit in a minute. And his son was my grandfather, who was a prominent New York City lawyer, many stripes. His wife, Margaret Holbrook, who was related to these two, and they spawned my father and 3 siblings, and one more who died in the polio the epidemic of 1918. So my father is the baby in this picture, and funny, I forgot to include him on this board, but two of the girls in this little picture, his siblings, are here in their later years along with me. So this comes from one of those boxes that you just don't want to organize, and it's waiting for you in the back of that closet. So I just kind of pulled this out. So, this is such a moving story. His obit, yeah, that's great. I wanted to share it with you. This is Judge William Kuhn Holbrook, the second from the left. And he was born in Brattleboro. And this is Vermont. And this is from the Brattleboro Times from March 25th, 1904. Colonel William Kuhn Holbrook, 61, Judge of Court of Special Sessions in New York City and son of ex-Governor Frederick Holbrook, died suddenly and unexpectedly at his home in New York Saturday night. He was born in Brattleboro in July 14, 1842, and spent his early youth in this town. He secured his early education in the village schools of Brattleboro, after which he sought employment as a clerk in Boston. While there, he and his intimate friend and companion, General Nelson A. Miles, until recently Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Army, joined the crack military company of Boston and therein received their early training in military practice. So, at the age of 19 years, he returned to Brattleboro and assisted in drafting Company F of the 4th Regiment Vermont Volunteers, going to the front with that regiment as first lieutenant of his company. It was said that his voice was so loud and his orders so distinct that he was easily heard throughout the line. Subsequently, he was commissioned major of the 7th Regiment, which was a position he held until until he was sent to the Department of the Gulf of Mexico. A position he held until the close of the war. He was the youngest colonel in the U.S. Army, being a few weeks over 20 years old at the time of his commission. His regiment was stationed at Fort Pensacola, and Colonel Holbrook was ever after in command of that northern district of Florida. The battles in which he actively participated in included Vicksburg, Grand Gulf, Baton Rouge, Jackson's Bridge, Gonzalez's Bridge, the Spanish Fort, Blakely, Whistler, Mobile. Admiral Farragut, of congenial spirit, and his staff used occasionally to dine with Colonel Holbrook at his headquarters, where wild turkey and other wild game of Florida was served. Occasionally, the colonel, in return, dined with the admiral aboard ship. Colonel Holbrook's regiment became expert gunners in heavy artillery. The 7th Regiment was a part of the land force in the capture of Mobile, the soldiers advancing by land as the admiral sailed up the harbor, and they were in at the capture of the city. It was through the efforts of Colonel Holbrook that the 7th Regiment of Vermont Volunteers obtained redress after being grossly trounced on, that is, by Major General Benjamin Butler after the Battle of Baton Rouge. Colonel Holbrook, then major, was ordered to report in person to General Butler, who informed him that he had been recommended for the vacant colonel position, and at the same time told him that he had prepared an order rebuking the regiment for discreditable behavior in the face of the enemy. Colonel Holbrook stoutly maintained that the regiment had done nothing meriting this censure. But in spite of this remonstrance, General Butler issued his order stating that they broke in confusion when not pressed by the enemy, that the regiment refused to march to the aid of an Indiana regiment, and that they fired into this Indiana regiment, killing and wounding several. For these reasons, General Butler said he should not permit the name of the battle to be inscribed on the regiment's colors. Colonel Holbrook demanded of the assisting general a complete investigation, which was ordered, but unfortunately the court of inquiry was selected by General Butler. And although many of the charges were proven to be untrue, the findings were not satisfactory. So the services of the 7th, afterwards, a board of officers, impartial, was convened, and the services of the 7th at Baton Rouge to investigate this. They gave the regiment full vindication, and General Sheridan ordered that the name of the battle be inscribed on the regiment's colors. In 1882, the governor published a history of the 7th Regiment in which he stated, "I doubt if the annals of the war furnish another such instance of premeditated iniquity as was this monstrous attack upon our regiment. The secret impulses which actuated General Butler in pursuing the course he did toward the 7th are of course known only to himself, but there are many circumstances at the time which tended to indicate that his action was inspired by malice and from a desire to add to his own reputation as a disciplinarian and for political effect." After the close of the war, Colonel Holbrook returned to Brattleboro, having acquired a good knowledge of military law by serving on courts martial during his service in the Army. Thus his attention was called to the law as a profession. He accordingly entered the Harvard Law School, and after his graduation from that institution, went to New York City to begin the practice of law. In the course thereof, he was successful in winning some important and sharply contested cases before the Court of Appeals of the State of New York. And P.S., he did marry my great-great-grandmother in 1872. Her name was Anna Morrison Chalmers, and she has a wonderful, wonderful write-up. But I just wanted to share this with you for some context of the shoulders we all stand on. And particularly myself, but where this country stands now is it's such a precipitous perch, and so much effort and risk and sorrow and danger has preceded us. So, yes. Okay, thanks everybody.
Hi, everybody. So this is the night of my father's yurt site, 33 years ago. So I wrote him a letter. When I was 16, you handed me a gift-wrapped box, pink, I think, and presented me with my first perfume. It was French, L'air du Temps, a garden of innocence, nothing too exotic for your young daughter, nothing that would be too tempting for the boy next door. You've been gone for almost half of my life. I wish you would have known your 5 grandchildren and the places we each call home. Mine, a house built in 1791 in the Berkshire Mountains. You would have loved the land it sits on, acres of fields, a pond that's been taken over by a family of beaver, a place where bear fish and deer drink and coyote stalk their prey. You would have prayed to the trees, like I do, pines and spruce, tall and majestic, tips touching the sky. You would have loved knowing that I became a writer. You would have fallen head over heels with Ritchie's home in Italy, in the hills of Torino. I picture you getting lost for days in my brother's garden, pruning the fig and lemon trees, being patient, never plucking the fruit before it was ripe and ready for the taking. I can see you digging your hands into the rich Piedmont soil where for centuries vines of grapes flourished on terraced land. You'd be tickled knowing Richie shared the love of growing things and thinks of you when he works in his garden the same way I do when I dig in. I remember your beautiful hands, the wedding band you never took off, and how, after so many years of wear, it was thin in places, the gold worn, the patina soft, like your smile. You would have loved knowing how your youngest son took such good care of Mom and made sure she was okay. David and Nancy brought her to their brownstone in Park Slope and to the theater and to gatherings. Their friends loved her too. A few years after she died, they moved to Lisbon. He's a college professor, like your brother was, and teaches filmmaking, and loves art and dogs and music, and makes doc films with a social justice lean. You would not love that there's a war going on between Israel and Gaza. It's heartbreaking. You would not love that Donald Trump was elected president twice. You would have loved knowing that after you were gone, Mom sold the house and moved into that pre-war building she always admired, the one that matched her elegance. You would love knowing that she never loved another man. It was always you, Dad. You were always her sigh. She studied the Bhagavad Gita for the rest of her life. As she was dying, we read her favorite passages, but you knew that because you were there too. She saw you reach out your hand and ask her to dance. You were such a good dancer. I remember when you swept me onto the floor. It must have been at a family wedding. You placed your hand on the small of my back and swept me away. It was magic. No man has ever danced with me like that. I felt like Ginger Rogers. I guess it takes a father to be his daughter's Fred Astaire.
I'm nervous. It's new for me. I know, but I didn't. I'm just putting it closer to my face. Okay, I'll move this. Thanks. Trying something new. Well, I was going to say, it's always come back to our mothers. Doesn't it always come back to our mothers? Geraldine, you're 81. You can't breathe. You've got those tubes for so long because the COPD has really taken over. And you smoke for over 40 years. Geraldine. I've wondered when you lost your spark or if you ever had it. I don't know. Lucy, Grandma Lucy, your mother, we revered her as we should have. Lucy was bold and confident and the quintessential Italian grandmother. And I never really noticed how hard she was on you. The only girl, the baby girl with 4 older brothers, Lucy would talk about how they had a block party for you, Geraldine. Finally, the girl. Were you not pretty enough? Were you not thin enough? You were never enough for Lucy. You used to talk about when you cared about talking about anything, when you weren't resigned. so goddamn resigned. You used to talk about smoking cigarettes on the corner in Brooklyn in your school uniform, and you'd tip your hat low because that was cool. And I can see you with your curly hair smoking on the corner. That smoking never stopped. Never stopped. Geraldine. Geraldine, I try to remember something sweet. And I have this feeling, this memory of being so small after school or before school started, because maybe I was 3 or 4, and I remember lying up against your body watching a Chilly Willy cartoon. And if I could put myself there in this moment, I'd be there. I don't remember holding hands. I don't remember hugs. I don't remember I love you, you're okay. You're going to be okay. It's okay. I still want it. I still want it. And I understand, but I still want it. I remember that. And my sister, Lorraine, sent Tommy and I a text recently, and it was a photograph, a black and white photograph, and it was you on the beach, probably like, I don't know, early 60s, and you're looking out to the distance, and you have a turban and those pointy boobs that the bathing suits give everyone, and with cousin Jerry, way before you were married, and you're so beautiful. So beautiful. And later I had a dream about me trying on those kind of bathing suits. and I wonder where you were at that moment in your life. I know the choices were slim. I know it was like housewife or secretary. And I know there was a time you worked on Wall Street before you married my dad, because you probably felt like he was the only one that would take you. Because I know that kind of insecurity, Geraldine. I really do. And you used to talk about going to the bar after work with the Wall Street guys, and you'd have a drink, and the bartender would say, "Get those things off the counter." Got to think about that for a minute. But there was a smile and a twinkle in your eye in that memory. Geraldine, I forgive. I forgive you. And it's like I'm preparing and letting go now, so I can be there for you. I let go of what I've taken on that's not mine. I know insecurity. I know it well. I know it like my back pocket. And so much of that is not mine. So I let that go. Every day I'm sloughing it off and sloughing it off. Yeah, Geraldine. Yeah, and the kids, the grandkids, just remembering this, they had a song about you, and it went, Geraldine, nickname Gigi Geraldine, nickname Gigi, because you're Gigi, to the grandkids. And that feels light, and that feels silly. And I know you're not going to go there. I know you're not going to get to light and silly, because you're way past that. But what I can hold on to that I know for sure, and I'll put in my pocket, Geraldine, is that you are one tough broad. Yeah, so I celebrate you wherever you're at. Thanks.
We are really getting to know each other's families and ancestors and those who are here and those who are not in such a beautiful way. I thank you all. Next up is Kim Kaufman. I'm welcoming her. I'm so pleased to see her. And Judy Pichel will be after that. Thank you, Kim.
Hi. I'm going to read some poems. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
If you want to raise it a little, you're taller than me. Yeah.
There we go. This poem is called Carnivorous, the Dilemma of the Vegetarian Mother. I want to tell you, my kids hate this poem. These children of mine, they do not eat insects or worms much. They prefer the meat of bipeds and quadrupeds, the 2- and 4-leggers, the fur and feather varieties with crispy skin. They like fire blazing in the yard, in the grill, on the stove. They have sharp eye teeth and stalk animals in the woods. They carry sticks and guns, make snares and sharp pointy things. They scavenge along the roadside. They are vulture and cat and quite human as they rip and tear muscle between their teeth. It is their choice to predate, to top dog it, to bite. They are not obligate carnivores, nor do they have a pitcher plant's patience for flies to come in their open mouths. They seek fresh flesh. They watch zombie movies. They drool at meat counters, looking at marbled slabs. The choice to eat meat was always theirs, not mine, to give or take. Seeing them gnaw on bones, I turn away from the grease on their chins. So many lives smeared on their fingers. This one is called The Boys in the Basement. Lined up on the couch in a dim room, dark hole, thumbs clicking quickly, they like this game. They know what to do with their lives. Their desire and hopes live on this tired couch. They know what to do to stay out of the hole, stay on top of their game. They must quickly move their thumbs, quickly, if they want to stay alive. They enter the game, the arena, this screen, this couch. It becomes their whole lives, and they know what to do. They do it. They are due for a break, but first, quickly, they must complete the whole game. They don't eat or pee. Their lives stuck on the couch. All they think is this game. Life is the game. That's what they do in the blackened room on the dead couch. Life goes by quickly. The game lives in this moment. It's the hole they have fallen into, the hole of their attention, the game. How will they compete in their lives if all they do is move their thumbs quickly in the basement on the couch? And I want to say, I read that to my son and his 3 friends in the basement on the couch, and they all just looked at me like, can you just stop talking and can we get back to the game? So I haven't read poems about my mother before. I promised myself I would not do that till she died. And she died a little over a month ago. Yeah. So I picked some kinder poems about my mother. My mother's kitchen. Like a dragon sleeping on its hoard, my mother sits on piles of paper mixed with stale crackers, desiccated fruit, lipstick-stained napkins. Dozing on a pile she doesn't feel, the keys to lost locks, crusty AA batteries. 10 rolls of packing tape, my grandmother's lost ring, spore-filled jam jars. Disturb the papers and plumes of moths flutter, white in the dingy kitchen. In the sink, a bottle of drain cleaner beside the strawberries. Without the overhead light, the windows shut, latched and shaded, she doesn't see bits of food crusted on plates in the dish drainer. Old hairbrushes, dense with strands, receipts, eyeglasses, pens and quarters spill onto the last working burner. Her oven is a dead pit. Her fingernails rake through the mounds, clutching each precious item. A clipped article, an insurance solicitation, old uncashed checks, out-of-date coupons. She wants it all. Cookbooks block the cupboards. A dozen leaking tomatoes meld into the crumbling counter. On top of a stool in the middle of the kitchen, a blue hydrangea, like a captured princess, makes my mother grin in her dark cave. And the last one is called Mother Tongue. I return home carrying sentences clinging to me, like the burdock that makes the children cry, the burrs pricking their skin, so painstaking to pull out. You spoke your mother tongue to me. Cat got your tongue, you said, knowing you have your claws sunk deep in red metal, glistening in my mouth. I have my own mother tongue that slashes out and makes bright that which wishes to stay hidden. Love and cruelty slick as saliva. If I shed the skin of my tongue like a snakeskin, leaving it new, pink, and raw, then I might know before I spoke which word would wound. Then I could say my own twisting words, my mother tongue licking your skin, lapping the smell of you, so mammalian, so animal strong.
Thank you so much. So many images and ideas and beautiful relationships. I'm really enjoying all of it. And I will say that just even thinking about families, I could go into such dark places and such wild places, and it seems that we all can. I'm happy to say that at this point, I chose a different path. Hold on. Are you okay? Okay, good. In fact, I have told many stories about my family on this very stage. But tonight, I want to pay homage to another kind of family. The family you choose. Not blood family, friend family. The ones you tell your child to call aunt and uncle even if they're not. I'm going to tell the story of Aunt Carolyn. Yes, that kind of aunt. She was not related to me except by heart and soul. Sometimes you meet a person and the minute you look them in the eyes, you get a spark, a connection. Many of you in this room qualify for that in my life. You click, you hit it off, you want to know more about them, you think they're really funny, everything they say is interesting, you keep having more in common. I call it friend at first sight. It's really like falling in love. Some people say you're meeting a past life connection when it's really strong and the pull is gravitational on both sides. I met Carolyn 30 years ago at my celebratory graduation from my very first training in hypnotherapy. She was in the advanced class, and I noticed her when we both signed up for ongoing supervision in hypnosis back in New York City. Our first supervision in the belly of some stinky hotel conference room in the city, we were paired up to work together. To our amusement, we both wanted hypnosis to help with the same problem, overeating. So we practiced, but we mostly gabbed and bonded. And then we became good friends and criminals. We became partners in crime, going all through the city eating. We would go to the best restaurants, always sharing dishes so you could taste more. The tenderest sushi, the garlickiest pasta, the creamiest creme brulee. This being New York City, it was infinitely fun. We also found we had other journeys in common. We were both spiritual seekers. The joy of having a new friend who could share my interests no matter how wacky or esoteric was exhilarating. I found a new psychic. You want to go? Let's go, you know? Oh, you got to hear this channeler. You got to hear this stuff. Oh, should it be Abraham Hicks, Guru Naranya, Brian Weiss? Let's go study with Brian Weiss. Let's do past life regression. In fact, let's become past life regressionists. In fact, I probably knew you in a past life. We became members of the National Guild of Hypnotists and attended our first hypnosis convention together. That field, the field I'm still in, 30 years ago was very different. The convention was 90% old, droning men in love with whatever they said. They loved to hear themselves talk. And among the few women attending, there was a sprinkling of actual witches, people who showed up in like long garb and hats and wands. That is the truth. We laughed our way through that convention, hoping our new profession wasn't completely wacko. We did meet some wonderful teachers who taught us breakthrough ideas and techniques. Then, on our way home, I began singing to keep myself awake in the car behind the wheel when I always fall asleep. And we found out we both had endless collections of Rodgers and Hammerstein show tunes in the jukeboxes of our mind. So we were happy buddies, pseudo-sisters, celebrating holidays, birthdays with my real family, who called her Aunt Carolyn. Just like in families, we had a few blow-ups. Remember this, folks. If your new friend says, I'm not speaking to my mother, or my sister, or my brother, or my cousin, one day it will be you. And one day it was. We had those ruptures and learned a lot by healing them. But one was very difficult because when I was sick and things go badly, that's when you need real family, when you count on them. When I had my cancer year in 2004, Carolyn was the only friend that couldn't handle it. She never called, never visited. She apologized, and I eventually forgave her, as she repeatedly made up for it after I was well. And she said, it scared the shit out of me. I just couldn't handle it. "20 years later, it was her turn. She got a terrible diagnosis last December. A cancer so terrible she refused to name it or discuss it. In her wish to stay positive, she kept me and her friends in the dark, uninformed. But sadly, not naming your cancer does not cure it. She passed away within 4 months of diagnosis and never let me come to see her when she was sick. In our many talks and musings about the nature of life and death, we had been in total agreement. We never wanted to suffer. We never wanted to lose our minds, forget our names, wear diapers, or be a burden. I can't count how many times she told me, I don't want to be old and decrepit. Well, she totally got what she asked for. She was gorgeous, fun, laughing, 83 3/4, and in the height of well-being the last time I saw her. She hated being seen as not her glorious self. She's someone who didn't leave the house without her hair done and her nails painted. But Carolyn entered my heart, expanded it for 20 years, so she'll always be family to me. The last thing she said over the phone was, I'll see you in the next life. And you know something? I believe it.
Second daughter. No matter my age, I will always be the second daughter of 4 sisters. Our birth order never to change. Fixed like the phases of the moon, 4 girls born every 2 years between 1958 and 1964. No matter how much time passes or how different our lives become, that order defines us. When I think about my sisters, I'm immediately transported back to childhood, playing the role of the curious, impetuous little girl who personified Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, which I thought was a wives' tale, written in 1845, there was a little girl, and she had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. When she was good, she was very, very good. And when she was bad, she was horrid. I don't remember who said it first. My mother, my father, my grandma. But I know this. It was always said about me. Not Shari, not Judy, not Fran, me. Even though all 4 of us had the same dark curls, those words became my signature, my shadow, my curse. Shari, my older, smart sister, had tight black pin curls with one side perpetually smashed flat from bedhead. She was clueless that anything needed fixing. Whether it was her hair or the chaos around her, she just let things go. Judy, the third middle, had kinky, reddish-brown, bipolar hair, mirroring her personality. She took her anxiety out on her hair, which gave the rest of us a break from her relentless mood swings. Fran, the baby, had long auburn curls that gleamed reddish in the sun, giving her a glow that made her look like she had it all together. She got away with murder, but even then you could see the cracks beneath her cool facade. And then there was me, the oldest middle, number 2, desperate to change my destiny. By the time I was 10, I was blow drying my hair straight. If I couldn't get to the whole tangled mess, blow dryers then weren't what they are now, I made sure my bangs were stick straight. I wanted to erase the one thing everyone said defined me. Over the years, my attempts to manipulate my curls mirrored my attempts to wrestle with my identity. I tried everything: balms, oils, gel, mousse, sculpting clay. I used flat irons, ionic wands, even Brazilian straightening treatments up here that cost a fortune, took hours, but delivered miracles. When done right, not even a typhoon could curl that hair. Hair was the only thing my sisters and I understood about each other, the only battle we all fought, the one truth we agreed on: curly, frizzy, dark hair is the enemy. But our strategies for tackling it revealed just how different we are. Shari barely fought her curls at all. She just set them with big pink plastic curlers that left a trail wherever she went, oblivious to the fact that they barely worked. She's always ready for a short-term fix, usually found shopping online. Judy threw money at the problem. She became a redhead, keeping it sleek and straight with a standing salon appointment. Fran wore her ski hat indoors year-round to reduce the frizz. She still hides what doesn't work. And me, I relied on sheer determination, willing my hair stick straight, pulling each curl taut between my fingers, smoothing each strand over and over, a finely tuned ritual only finished when the thick curls weren't curls anymore. To this day, I live by sheer grit, navigating life's bumpy roads by flattening them out. 4 sisters, each twisting our own way, never learning from each other. Emotionally, that saying haunts me. Chemotherapy erased the curls for good. Going blonde 25 years ago settled the dark hair argument, and blondes do have more fun. Now there's barely any blonde left, just a few sandy wisps intertwining with the salty gray that has taken over, victorious. These days, I wear a hat most of the time, with only stick-straight ends visible, a reminder of who I was, who I've been, and how much I've smoothed, twisted, and straightened my way through life. Every morning I look in the mirror and ask myself, what can I do today to be good and not horrid? And I wonder, what if my parents or grandma had quoted Rumi, the Sufi poet, instead of Longfellow? What if they had said, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it? Would I have learned earlier to embrace the messy, untamed beauty of life, to honor both the good and the horrid? Perhaps that second daughter of 4 sisters could have been something entirely different. And then I take a deep breath, and I look at your smiling faces, and I know I am right where I am supposed to be, the second daughter of 4 sisters.